We got to stop forcing people in categories that they do not belong in. Some people are meant for fun, and fun only, right? And then you got other people who are meant for long situations, marriage, long-term.
Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning and your phone is completely silent. No notifications, no messages, no one reaching out. Just you and the quiet. Most men would panic, desperately scrolling through contacts, posting something just to get a reaction. But what if I told you that silence isn't your enemy? It's your greatest teacher. Today, we're exploring a truth that makes most men uncomfortable. The longer a man remains single by choice, the more powerful he becomes. Not because he's avoiding relationships, but because he's discovered something most men never find: himself. If you've ever felt the pressure to constantly be connected, constantly be chasing, constantly be proving your worth to others, this message is for you. We're going to uncover why the man who chooses solitude isn't running away from life. He's running toward mastery. Before we dive deep, I want you to do something. Type in the comments, "I choose solitude to forge my strength." Don't just read those words, own them. This isn't about becoming a hermit. It's about becoming unshakable. The first thing that happens when you embrace solitude is you confront the fear of silence. Society has programmed us to believe that quiet means something's wrong. If your phone isn't buzzing, if no one's seeking your attention, then maybe you're failing, right? Wrong. Most men don't actually fear being alone. They fear what being alone reveals. When the distractions disappear, when there's nowhere to hide, you're forced to face the truth you've been avoiding. All those regrets you buried, the promises you made to yourself that you never kept, the dreams you postponed, they all surface. This is where most men break. They reach for their phones, they text someone they shouldn't, they dive into meaningless activities just to escape themselves. But here's what the ancient Stoics understood. Growth doesn't begin in comfort. It begins in the fire of self-confrontation. When you sit in that silence, really sit in it without running, something extraordinary happens. You realize you're still breathing, still here, still capable. Those negative thoughts screaming in your head, they're just echoes, old programming that has no power unless you give it power. The man who can sit with his own thoughts without flinching, who can face his failures without making excuses, who can be alone without feeling lonely, that man has discovered inner command. He's no longer at the mercy of external validation because he's found something more valuable: self-respect.
No man is a man without a woman. It's a woman that helps the man to be a man. A man that don't have a woman don't know if he's one.
This leads us to the second transformation: approval detox. Most men are addicted to something invisible yet destructive: the need for constant approval. You check your phone first thing in the morning not for information, but for validation. Did she reply? Did they like your post? Do people still remember you exist? This addiction is silent but deadly. It makes you shrink your opinions to fit the room. It makes you say yes when every fiber of your being wants to say no. You become a people pleaser wearing the mask of a confident man, but underneath, you're dying slowly. Approval seeking rewires your brain to prioritize others' opinions over your own truth. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny, agree with ideas you don't believe in, and compromise your values just to avoid conflict. You think you're playing it safe, but you're actually playing small. The approval detox begins when you start asking yourself one crucial question: am I doing this because I believe in it or because I want to be liked? That question alone will revolutionize your life. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. You stop apologizing for having standards. You stop explaining yourself to people who weren't really listening anyway. At first, it feels like withdrawal. The silence feels uncomfortable. But if you push through, something powerful emerges: your authentic voice. When you stop chasing approval, you start carrying a different energy. People notice there's weight in your presence, stillness in your eyes. You don't need attention because you command it naturally. This is the paradox. The moment you stop trying to be seen is when you become impossible to ignore. Men who chase approval blend into the background noise, but men who choose themselves, they stand out not through volume, but through alignment. They know what they believe, what they'll tolerate, and most importantly, who they are when nobody's watching. The third transformation is clarity through solitude. In our hyper-connected world, we're constantly bombarded with opinions, expectations, and noise. Your thoughts aren't even your own anymore. They're a mixture of social media feeds, other people's anxieties, and societal programming. But when you step into genuine solitude, something beautiful happens. The fog lifts. Not because the world changed, but because you stepped away from the chaos long enough to see clearly. You begin to distinguish between what you actually want and what you've been told to want. In solitude, you ask better questions. Instead of, "What do people expect of me?" you ask, "What do I truly value?" Instead of, "How can I fit in?" you ask, "How can I be authentic?" These questions can only be answered in silence, away from the influence of others. You start noticing what energizes you versus what drains you.
One day you got to realize that the same person doesn't come around twice in a lifetime. And by then, they might be gone. We live in a world that moves extremely fast. A world that tells you, just find someone new. There's always another one.
You become aware of which relationships add value to your life and which ones exist purely out of habit. You realize how much of your identity was built on other people's expectations rather than your own truth. This clarity leads to intentional living. You stop waking up just to survive the day and start waking up with purpose. Your routines align with your values. Your environment reflects who you're becoming, not who you used to be. You become selective about where you invest your time and energy. People might not understand your choices, and that's okay. You're no longer living to be understood by everyone. You're living in alignment with the man you were meant to become. This rootedness makes you immovable. Others can disagree, misunderstand, even walk away, but you remain centered because you're not living for their approval. The man who embraces solitude doesn't speak to impress. He speaks because what he says has weight. He doesn't chase opportunities. He creates them. He doesn't need to be chosen because he's already chosen himself. This isn't arrogance, it's self-possession. Here's what most men don't understand. The goal isn't to become isolated or antisocial. The goal is to become so comfortable with yourself that your relationships come from a place of choice rather than neediness. You connect with others because you want to, not because you're afraid of being alone. When you master solitude, you bring your complete self to every relationship. You're not half a person looking for someone to complete you. You're a whole man choosing to share his life with others who add value. This changes everything: the quality of your friendships, the depth of your romantic connections, even your professional relationships. The paradox is beautiful. The more comfortable you become with being alone, the more attractive you become to others.
I don't want happily ever after. No. I want conventionally ever after. You see, loving you is not always going to happen.
Not because you're playing games, but because you radiate the confidence that comes from self-knowledge. You're not desperate for connection. You're selective about it. So if your world feels quiet right now, don't panic. That silence isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's life giving you the space to discover who you really are beneath all the noise and expectations. You don't need more validation, more attention, or more noise. You need more stillness. The man who walks alone isn't broken. He's building. He's not running from the world. He's preparing to engage with it from a position of strength. He moves through life like someone who has already chosen himself, and that energy is magnetic. This is your invitation to stop chasing and start becoming. To stop performing and start being. To stop explaining yourself to people who will never understand and start living in a way that needs no explanation. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, let me know in the comments. What's one distraction you're ready to release today? And if you're committed to building not just success, but character, subscribe to the Stoic spirit. We're not here to chase approval. We're here to forge men who lead from the inside out. Remember, solitude isn't isolation, it's preparation. And the man who masters his own company becomes unstoppable in any company.